Thank you for joining us and welcome to the latest episode of our Franchise Readiness Series, where we help people considering the path to business ownership understand the options and opportunities available and how franchising could be the choice that works for them. Today, we're going to be talking about actionable tips that you can use to evaluate franchise opportunities that you may be interested in exploring. I'm your host for this session, Pat Hyland, Vice President of Franchise Development at Neighborly. I am a certified franchise executive and business coach. I've spent my career helping over 3,000 business owners start on their path towards business ownership and financial independence. I live what I teach too, as my wife and I are both multi-unit, multi-concept franchise owners, and we have successfully built and sold businesses, both to individuals and private equity companies. My experience and approach are captured in my book, Stop Chasing Two Rabbits, Is Business Ownership Right for You? I have some very special guests today. With Neighborly's executive team, we have Josh Sevick, Group President overseeing several of our Neighborly brands in the Enhance and Specialty cluster. Josh has over 20 years of experience in large and small organizations with backgrounds in corporate finance and analytics. And in his career, he has also held the roles of Director of Strategy, Director of Marketing, Chief Operating Officer, President, and even Chief Executive Officer. From Integrity Franchise Group, we have with us Lisa Welko, Certified Franchise Consultant. Lisa has over 20 years of business ownership experience, including 15 years of franchise experience with hundreds of clients. And she has developed a reputation as being a trusted connection for individuals exploring business ownership through franchising. And we are also joined today with Trey Powell, franchise owner of Mosquito Joe of Lexington, South Carolina, and Augusta, Georgia. Trey is a serial business owner and has run several successful businesses, including Mosquito Joe franchises, while also somehow finding the time to generate thousands of dollars for philanthropic causes like Make-A-Wish Foundation and spending time at the lake with his wife and his 3 daughters. Welcome all.
Thank you.
Pat.
Appreciate you taking the time to be here today. Josh, I'd like to start with you. As a franchisor, why would somebody be interested in franchising? What's the benefit that they could as opposed to go on and do it on their own?
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Pat. And great question. I kind of think of it in two different ways. One is the big why, right? Why are they coming to franchising and what are they trying to get done? And it's really back to what you said of vehicle. So I think a lot of candidates are coming. They're thinking of franchising as a conduit to really achieve some bigger hopes and dreams, right? Mm-hmm. And usually it's financial independence, it's generational wealth, right? Trying to care for their families. It's being in control of your own destiny. It's having full control over your schedule, right? Mm-hmm. Those are some of the things they think of franchising as the vehicle to, right? Mm-hmm. Then I would think of the smaller why, and more specifically, why franchising as the vehicle. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably more of your original question. And I would sum it up personally after having seen, for the last decade, thousands of candidates come through. I would sum it up as value proposition, right? And our candidates don't use that language. The language they would use would be maybe speed or, because they don't have to build websites and, negotiate with suppliers and do all that's done for them, right? So speed, I think, probability of success. Mm-hmm. So it's not just I'm now going to be one of the statistics that we hear about in terms of failures. It's I'm buying proven systems and processes, right? And everything that comes along with that track record. And I'd probably say number 3 would be something in the world of support, right? And so they'll talk about, hey, I'm entering into this entrepreneurial venture, but I'm not necessarily doing it by myself. I'm not isolated. I have coaches and hundreds potentially of other franchise owners doing the same thing, right, out across North America. But I'd love to hear from these folks too, right? They all have unique perspectives here today.
Sure. Well, I mean, if self-employment is the right answer for you, I mean, that's, neither right or wrong. It's just who you are. And if you think, then you have to say, franchising or do I do this on my own? And, business is hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it. The benefits out there are tremendous, which is why everyone's attracted to it. It's the American dream. But, you know, and there's all kinds of statistics on this. You know, I don't know which one's right. It depends on how many years you go out. But, you know, generally speaking, they say 90% of all small businesses fail. Well, if you look at franchising, it could be almost the opposite. You know, maybe 90% of franchises succeed. I don't know what the right answer is, but they're on a different scale. And the reason for that is because when I say business is hard, when you open a business, there's an unlimited number of questions that you have to answer. Yeah. I mean, you know, what product do I use? You know, what materials do I do? Where do I get those materials? Who do I hire? How many people do I hire? How much do I pay them? How much do I charge? You know, how do I advertise? What's the best way to advertise? And it is thousands of these questions. It does not end. And, you know, you have to have a combination of you have to be smart and maybe a little lucky, because honestly, it's hard to figure that out. And so, you know, buying a franchise is getting the answers to most of those questions right. But you've got to be the person that says, I'm willing to plug in and follow this system and do it. You know, you have to execute as an entrepreneur, but it's that's what you're buying, and you're paying to get that right. So your probability of success goes up tremendously in a franchise, and there's a cost to that. And you know, so it's you know, that's really what, you know, why you buy a franchise, is because they give you a path for success that you're not going to have if you try and go out and do this. So
you got to pay for it one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you know, when the reason that businesses fail, small businesses fail, is because what happens is they try and answer those questions. They get a few right, they get a lot wrong, and their ability to figure out it's wrong and shift and do something different costs money. Every time they get it wrong, it costs money. Mm-hmm. And so they've got to figure it out before they run out of money. And the chances are most of them run out of money before they figure it out, and that's why they don't succeed. They don't start franchises from, you know, oh, I think this would be great. A franchise is started from somebody who did it right and figured it out, and now it's like, we have a system, you know, of doing business, and now we can just duplicate this, and here's how to do it. And that's where a franchise comes from. They don't, you know, there's very little need for research and development, and franchises will evolve, but it's a long evolvement over years of small little things. Not, you know, if somebody's coming into a franchise and they're like, you know, I think the colors should be a little different. I wish the brand was different, and that's not how I would market. That's not a good franchisee. That person just needs to go do it on their own. You know,
probably needs to look into other options.
Right. And that's neither good nor bad. It's kind of who they are, and you know, our tendency as human beings is to know better. We've achieved a certain amount of success. If you're looking to go into business, you've probably been pretty successful, and you know, it's when you get into a franchise, you're probably not going to follow 100%, but the closer you follow, the faster you'll be successful.
That's good.
One of the things you're paying for are the mistakes that franchisor made trying to figure it out.
100%.
Right. Like, you're paying for the fact that you phone a friend, right? You don't get that when you're trying to figure it out on your own.
No.
That's really good.
One thing I would just add to that as well, and Trey summed it up well, I think, that fear, right, and the probability of success and speed together. But the interesting thing is, when you're thinking as a candidate and you're looking at this, we all have different skill sets, and you may be somebody that would be great at running a business, but you may not be somebody that's great at starting a business, right? Pulling together these processes and, you know, finding the right people and tools and systems, right? And so I think it really erodes your probability of success in running the business if you're actually having to build it from scratch. Wow. So I thought Trey said it well.
When you talked about how much money that a business owner starting out on their own, they don't know how much money. It's always going to cost more. So the one thing about franchising is that you get that playbook too. Yep. This is how much it should cost for the CRM and cost to pay your people and to set it up and do your build out and do the plumbing and get the inventory. That's laid out, and working capital. So I think I've started businesses non-franchise, and you have no idea what you don't know. All of a
exactly.
sudden, one day I was the plumber, and one day I was the head coach, and the other day now I'm a website designer, and it's a mess. So
Well, Lisa, you have a unique role, and I'm so glad you're here today. As a franchise consultant, that you work with aspiring entrepreneurs, right? Kind of
Yes.
talk about what that role is for somebody that may not be aware of what you do, kind of,
Right.
and the value you provide.
yeah, it's fabulous. So you get to talk to people and get to know them, and what business is great for him is not great for you, and not for you at all, because you all have different skills and you bring what you want from the business too. So you get to decide. It's kind of, what do they say? You can pick your friends, you can't pick your family. You get to decide, right? So now you get to decide. You get to say, this is what I want in a business, and this is what I want my life to look like, and this is where I want it to be, and how much or little I want to travel or be in and out of the office. I want to work outside. I want to work inside. All of those things. And yeah, I get to help them figure it out. I've got 900 brands over here on this shelf, right? So I got to pick them out and say, these are the ones for Pat. And this one is good for Trent, and talk about them and get to know them. And some people have never owned businesses before, and they know they want something, but they don't know quite what it is, or they don't have their own independent idea. And so that's why you love franchising. It's the American dream laid out for you to say, here you go. Let's go build and own your own business and build your dream.
That's great. So you really help bring a aspiring entrepreneur with the right opportunity, and you kind of
Right.
help them find the right marriage with that.
Right, absolutely. It's all about fit.
That's great.
It's all about what have you done in your past, and what did you love about it, and what did you not like about it? Because now, again, you get to make some choices.
That's good.
To have somebody to be able to guide you through that process is, I think, underestimated. You know, I was in franchising for, I don't know, 15 to 18 years, and started looking at other franchises. And it took me a year of looking and, you know, just, do I like this? Do I not like this? And I wish I had gone to a consultant, because it was difficult saying, do I really want to do that industry? Is that a good industry, or is this a good industry? Not knowing kind of from the background about all of them,
Right.
you know, I stumbled into Mosquito Joe kind of by accident, but you know, it would have been a lot better to have had a franchise I would have
and you
gotten
have
there a
to-
lot faster.
You have to wade through all the marketing materials, because the franchises they know their brand, and they know everything about it, and the scenes, and they're trying to attract business owners.
Yep.
Where I get to look behind the scenes and get to know the management team and get to know the support, and then it just makes for an easier conversation.
Sure.
Instead of, I'm sure you didn't say, you know what, I'm going to go buy a mosquito business today, and I'm going to flip through and find one. It was more about what that business was going to do for you, how that business ran, recurring revenue, all that good
Right.
stuff.
Well, I can speak for Neighborly and say I'm glad that you stumbled into
Yeah.
so that
For
worked
sure.
out well for us.
For sure. So you find a coach to help you navigate all these different opportunities. You get there, and then all of a sudden you start talking to them, right? So Josh, I want you to talk about the mutual evaluation process that you like to see a candidate go through to make sure that this is a good fit for them, but also for your brands.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think Trey probably also has some good insight here, right, about the mutual evaluation. So the thing that I always try to help candidates think through when they're doing this process is this is really it's about you getting the right fit for your life, right? Your goals, and it's all the things that Lisa talked about and could talk about all day, right? At the same time, the franchisor is also very protective of their offering, and they're doing the evaluation of, are you the right fit as well? And what you really want, if you're a candidate, you want to make sure you're talking to a franchisor that's very interested in not just filling a seat, but looking for the right fit. And for us, you know, it's just like anything, right? Folks that a lot of our candidates have hired people in the past, and you can kind of think through that process, right? What do I see in this person that we think is a future predictor of success, right? Or do they have past achievements that we can rely on? Do they have something, this intangible grit, right? Have we seen them get through tough circumstances? Are they financially validated in a way where, you know, I tell people the worst outcome that we can get into is you building something successful and then getting derailed because you didn't have the money to see it through, right? Working capital is a real need. Sure. And so we're at the same time evaluating the same time that candidate is evaluating. And I think these folks can add some good insight to that, but that's really that process.
That's great. That's great. Trey?
Yeah, so it's, I think that, it's, are you really cut out to be self-employed? That's neither good nor bad. It's just who you are. I mean, some people are better employees. I'm a terrible employee. I mean, well, I would probably be your best and your worst employee every day.
Right.
And so, I've been an entrepreneur really since I was in college. And so, that's one thing. And then the second thing is, does franchising fit? And because some people are really great entrepreneurs and they want to do it all themselves, and they'll, you've got, as a franchisor, they've got to find the right candidates, because you can bring in the wrong candidate and somebody could be a great entrepreneur and they buy a franchise and they just want to change everything. If the logo looked a little more like this, that would be great. You're not doing it right on marketing. I think this would work better. And they're just wasting their time doing all this research and development. Why did you buy a franchise?
Right.
Just not the right candidate. You get somebody in that's just in the wrong industry. One of the things we talked about was how sexy is the industry. And, I think everybody wants sexy. And when I say that, I mean, it's, something that you can talk with your friends or share at church, or is it an industry that you're not as attracted, to,
Right.
And I've done both. I've done non-sexy and sexy. I think everybody wants sexy, but some people need it.
Right.
And I like sexy better than, where all of my friends could be possible, clients, where the other industry I was in, nobody that I knew was a client, and it was, we were targeting a lower income demographic. Okay. And so it was awkward, a little bit. Was really successful in it. I mean, that's one of the things is that I think that somebody who's a successful business owner can probably succeed in any franchise. Yep. That's right. But, it is better if you do find a match that really, really makes them happy.
I was going to ask you about that, Lisa, because there's so many opportunities out there to present to a candidate, right? Mm-hmm. And I think from what you just said, Trey, it's really knowing what the end in mind looks like, what their ultimate goal is, and finding the vehicle, whether it's sexy or not, to help them get to that. How do you take somebody through that?
In the very beginning, I use a business personality assessment, and it's not necessarily to say, you're going to be great at this or not great at this, but it's how you like to work, how you think. Like, achievers achieve. Like, if I handed you a business right now and said, this is it, this is the last one I got, and you have to go do it and to feed your family, even if it was completely outside you'd figure it out, because you have that chutzpah to figure it out. Not everyone has that. Some people are really good behind the scenes, and they're really good leading possibly a small team and being behind a computer, but they don't necessarily want to be out there and be the face of their business. Well, there's businesses out there for them. You don't have to be you. You can be we can find that one for you, but you have to own it. You really do. You have to say, this is where I live. I'm an operations person. I'm behind the scenes. Couldn't talk my way anywhere. Okay, this is what we're going to look at for you then, and this is why. And I think when they understand, this is why I'm showing you these, because of what you said and because of whatever happened in your life, it puts them at ease that there is something out there for them.
Yeah, because I really, from my experience, I do not know one business owner that's great at every aspect of a business.
Exactly. And you have to own that.
And you have to own that. And that's okay. So there's not a specific profile of a successful business owner. It's can they come in and use what they've got, but take advantage of those resources you were just talking about.
Well, and I'll talk to people. Like, some of them you can just tell they're cowboys. Yep. They're going to color outside the lines, and they're going to call that franchisor in 6 months if they have an issue. There's businesses out there for them. They're usually smaller. You're not going to get the same support. You're not going to have that. But truly, if you had all that support, you would feel so boxed in. Like, everybody's different. But those cowboys are out there. And I do think, why are you looking at franchising? because they're not going to like you, right? But we'll just put you in a smaller business, something that you can control a little bit and feel like you can spread your wings and stumble. Yep. Be ready to stumble a little.
And that's key, because I think it ties into the type of franchisor that fits culturally with what your goals are, right? Because you can either be that business owner. I know Josh's brands that he has, he's really looking, that I've seen him experience, is that people to work on the business and not in it, because to grow it, where you may have an owner operator that just wants to be out there turning the wrenches, whatever that is for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's something out there. It's just a matter of taking the time to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Like, let me get to know you. Let me figure out kind of what makes you tick, and the end in mind. Some people aren't looking to build a huge empire.
Right.
They just want that one job before retirement, that one last thing to do.
Pat, I really, it's funny because we've gone through a couple topics here, and they all seem to kind of center around fit.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about folks that are candidates and in the process right now, and just how meaningful that is, because it's like just sitting here and listening to some of this, if you're in the process, it's so valuable. And I think that people are going to get, and I hope they get out of this conversation, that I really need to have conversations with people that are in the know, that want to get the best fit for me, right?
Yep.
Not just executing on the first thing that they hear.
That's right. So good. So good. So somebody, Trey, you want to...
Well, I was going to say, a good example of that would be the difference between like a Shelf Genie and a Mosquito Joe. You have a big ticket item versus... Ours is under $100 and it's repetitive service, and so we're not in a real sales-oriented industry. I mean, so it's a lot of incoming. We market to incoming calls, and then it's just signing people up. It's not a lot of sales involved, and we have to do great service to keep them coming back and keep them on board. Where Shelf Genie is kind of a one-time, I would say, for the most part, and it's a larger ticket. You got to go in, and so you got to be a salesperson or have salespeople that are good. They got to build value and close much bigger tickets, and then go find another prospect, And so different people are going to, I think, be a better fit, I would say, whether they have a sales background or operations.
Right.
Yeah,
Good.
That's right.
Good. All right, so somebody finds the opportunities. Lisa presents them, maybe 3 or 4, whatever that looks like. They come to... Josh, one of your brands, or Trey, you're finding that brand, right? What does that process look like for somebody that's viewing this? What should a candidate expect to go through the qualifying process with an owner? What's that look like?
She's probably the better person to go through. Let's let her answer this first.
Sure. So, I mean, at first, it's a matter of, I want you to talk to a 3. Mm-hmm. I really do. Even if you're just drawn into that one, and we talked about all these, you need to understand the cadence and understand that, yes, it's a sales process, but it's also education and mutual evaluation. You're trying to figure out, are these people I want to have a long-term relationship with? Can I trust them? Can they trust me?
Sure.
Do you all of that? So at first, it's a matter of get to know the brand, have a couple of conversations. I tell everyone, have 2, no matter what. Never throw anything out. If you were attracted to it, make sure why, get that information, and then you get to get into the weeds: marketing, operations, support. Take your time, take your steps, be working on your spreadsheet, have your pros and cons list, and what have I learned, and what did I learn from one that might make me need to ask the other one to make sure. And then it becomes more clear. And every now and then you're going to hear something that is going to go, that's what I needed to hear, and I didn't even know what I was trying to listen for, but that's what I needed to hear. And so it's a matter of become educated, understand that the brand is, every single call, the brand is also looking to you to make sure you're going to be the best fit for them.
Yep.
So you need to present yourself in the best way possible if you want it.
Yeah.
They're awarded. I know it's cheesy to say, but
so true, because it's a mutual evaluation process, because we know what a franchisor is looking for and we know what a candidate's looking for. And truly, when you have somebody go through this process, it sounds like they should self-realize both that it's a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. But they have to figure it out for themselves. Yeah. I can't want it more than they do. Right. And I also can't say, you're missing it.
Yeah.
Right.
So you typically have a initial call with that franchise brand, right?
Right.
Get to know the people. At some point, you validate and speak to the different owners. What is it, Trey, that you validated in before you got the brand? You probably validate now for some of the brands. What's validation mean for a franchisor and for the candidate?
Well, probably one of the biggest things that if I were to give advice to someone looking at franchises is you got to kind of forget about the product. That is probably it's just the number one thing that people are attracted to is I like this, so I want to get into that.
Right.
And it's at the end of the day, it's probably the least important thing. I don't know how to describe that. And this is kind of where somebody, a good franchise development rep or a broker is going to help guide you through and say that's not as important as what you think. And I'll just give you an example. Is I was in the income tax industry for 20 years, and I went into that kicking and screaming. I mean, I am not an accounting person, and I said I'll do this as long as I never have to do a tax return.
Right.
And I had a sales background, and after seeing it for a couple months, I was like, man, I think I could do this. And I was really successful at it. But man, it was never something that I would have been attracted to.
Right.
But I got to know the people and the culture and story, and it was like, wow, I'm attracted to the business side of it. With Mosquito Joe, they actually reached out to me as a person that I knew and said, hey, you should try Mosquito Joe if you're looking. And I literally said, I don't think I can get excited about pest control. Right. But if you can kill bugs, come on over. And she said, hey, I just sold a franchise near you. Let me see if they can help you. I said, I'll try anything. Send them. And they came and treated our yard, and I was like, holy cow. I was like, that really worked. And I was so happy with it. I got 4 of my neighbors to treat later that week. Really? And then I called her back and said, all right, you got me. I was like, how does this work? I was like, this is unbelievable. And 30 days later, I bought Mosquito Joe. I mean, I was hungry to do it. I just couldn't find, because I was looking for products that I liked, that I wanted to do. I wasn't looking at the whole picture. And so you got to kind of, I never would have ended up in Mosquito Joe or income taxes if I wasn't exposed kind of backdoor to the opportunity.
Right. Well, and validation is everything. That's the best part of what this is. And I think the thing to remember, validation rolls off our tongue. I'm telling the people that I work with that are looking at the brands, you're validating your assumptions. You're validating, hey, this is what my day is going to look like. They get to talk to another owners. Is this what my day is going to look like? And you might say, no, you're not spraying bugs. You are talking to customers. You are scheduling. You are doing all the other things that need to be done. And I think that's the beauty in franchising, is that you get to talk to other people that were in your shoes and made that decision. And the best out there, the best question to ask is, would you do it again?
It's good. It is good. And I think of it as, we as the franchisor, sometimes, we get into the process of, we share about the business, we talk about the details, but there's still a lot of kind of mystique. And it's demystifying when you get out and you talk to a franchise owner who just had a really bad day because 3 people quit on him, right? And a customer's calling him. You actually get to understand what it really looks like to be a business owner in this brand. And so it to me is critical. We wouldn't take somebody that wasn't making calls and really wanting to understand what it's like in the field, right? Because Trey can tell you all day, it doesn't look like the shiny thing that we talk about, which that's the only way we can really communicate it, right? It's the systems, it's the processes, it's the successes, but you have to understand what the day-to-day is, because that's where you're going to be.
Right? Where's the grit have to kick in, right?
That's exactly
on that day-to-day, like you said earlier. In validation, there's certain things that a franchisor can disclose and certain things they can't, right? Legally, for the Federal Trade Commission. If you haven't already understood what an FDD is, you will. It's a franchise disclosure document. It is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. And all franchisors, including Neighborly Brands and everyone out there, has to abide by these. So any information that's stated in there, we can communicate, however we'd like, to those candidates. But there's certain things that we may be getting questions, and I encourage all of these, candidates to get all their questions answered.
Absolutely.
But some of them we can't answer that only owners can answer.
Absolutely. But wait, don't try to call an owner. Don't start secret shopping day one.
Right. Sure.
Right? It's like, understand the business so you have good questions, because validation is truly, you're taking someone's time. Someone calls you, you have nothing to gain or lose if this person decides to go with this business. And so it's good when they can have educated questions. So learn about the business at least for weeks or even a month. Really understand it. So when you're talking to the other franchise owners, you're not asking them,
What do you do?
basic question that you should have gotten from the marketing call. You should have gotten from something else. This is going to be, it's the best conversation you're going to have to make your decision, but you have to be educated going into it. Otherwise,
That's really
you're
good
just going to
advice.
throw it out.
That's very good.
People want to talk right away.
Right, exactly.
And when they get to that point, I think that there's a different level of validation that every person needs.
Right.
When I went to Mosquito Joe, I called a couple of franchisees, but I really, having been in franchising, I knew I wanted to talk to, and I was like, give me your best top 2 people. Yep. Who are the top 2 people in the country? That's who I want to talk to. And because I can do it successfully, but I want to talk to just the top people. And I have a friend of mine who I referred to Mosquito Joe. He became a franchisee, and man, that guy, he dug in and did more research than, if I'm ever going to buy another business, I'm going to hire him to do my research. Wow, he really knows everything about the market and everything about the area and stuff. But he's very numbers oriented and very technical and analytical. But and sometimes I would say some people overdo it, and they want to speak to every single franchisee or things, and it's
and that's telling to a brand. That's very telling, right, Josh?
It is, Pat. You picked up on that. It's once again, these processes for a good franchisor. I don't mean somebody that's been open for a year. For a good franchisor, these things are very telling, and it's what I would pick up on, and I'd have to know the individual and engage with them. But our teams would probably start figuring out this person has a really high aversion to risk. Yeah. They probably don't pivot well, and these are just general assumptions.
If
we have
they're
to know
looking
the person.
for a reason to say no, they're going to
right.
find one.
It's
Somewhere
really right.
you're going to find
it's
it.
Really right.
You have to look for the reason to say yes.
How you even approach these processes, I think, are telling.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the end in mind, going back to that, is really comes down to money, right? How much? What's the ROI on their investment in building a business? I do not want to discount in any way somebody that doesn't want to work for somebody anymore. They just want to be their own boss, and that's a good thing too, right? But the economics do come in at some point, right? So kind of talk about how do we communicate through your different brands, or how do you, Lisa, I'll start with you, help your candidates understand the economic return for them by going out and building a successful business?
Well, we talked about the FDD, so I'll say it's 250 pages, lawyers talking to lawyers, right? That's what this is. But it is written in a way for all of us to understand it. It's written in outline form. Each item has a number. Every number is going to address the same thing, from crime scene cleanup to Pizza Hut, right? So here we go. So let's go through this. And so you're going to get from 5, 6, and 7. There's my expenses. There's what it's going to cost me. I should be able to figure out how much it's going to cost to run this business. You're starting to put together that plan. Get to item 19. You're starting to see some understanding of revenue. But biggest thing to tell people all the time is that this is historical revenue of other franchisees who are in the system for 12 months for the previous calendar year. What did I just tell you? It's a rear view mirror. It's not a crystal ball. It's not how much money am I going to make in this one, right? It's how much revenue was generated from the other owners in the system, and you get to talk to those owners and find out how hard it was to generate that revenue. Sometimes you'll see some understanding of expenses and labor, that type of thing, but the item 19 is designed to help you put that together, but it's not an answer.
Right.
It's simply one more tool in your arsenal to figure this out and to try to figure out, yes, your ROI, you're trying to come to that, but you're not going to get a solid number. You're not going to get, this is the one, I'm going to make $1 million.
Yeah, so item 19 is in the FDD. If you haven't already done this, you'll learn this as you review it. Like Lisa said, they're all broken up. Every franchisor has the FDD structured the same way.
Yep,
So
legally they have to.
legally
which
they
is
have
great.
to do that. So you can find it through the FDD. What's another way, Josh, that people can learn more about the economics and the ROI?
Back to validation.
Yep.
Right. So understanding from other franchise owners, and obviously you've got to talk to different folks to really get a sense for their experience, because different markets may perform a little different, but really encourage people to understand what is it producing, right? And for a franchise owner, they or at least a candidate, they really have to understand, hey, what are we looking at for maybe pricing, and what are we looking at for volume, right? So if it's a Mosquito Joe, what are these applications, what are you selling them at, and what's my margin on these things, right? And that tends to be something that more financial minds really appreciate, but it's a meaningful way to go about understanding the economics of the business.
That's good.
And the industry in general. Industries are going to have certain commonalities. So
right.
if you do any industry research, you'll understand a little bit more too, I think. And I think sometimes that's overlooked. But,
Well, this is where it comes back to fit as well, because you have two different people coming to the table, and one is really well financed. They have a lot of money available, and their financial situation is different. Where they have a spouse that earns a lot, and they can survive on that.
Sure.
And you have someone else who is not in that situation, is not well capitalized, maybe a little undercapitalized, and so finding a business that where they can do the work, may be more important, at least in the beginning, because they have to make money, and Mosquito Joe is unique in that way that people can do it both ways. I see people come in and the wife answers the phone, and the husband goes out and does the treatments, and they have to be profitable day one. There's no way they couldn't be making money the day one. Right. I did not do that. I did not want to. I hired a technician, hired an office manager, and invested a ton of money into advertising and scaled the business as quick as possible. But I ran it like a business. Some businesses offer that, some don't. But I think that they have to. The fit is right. They have to understand what their economics are and what their expectations are, and get to the industry that's going to allow them to succeed.
Absolutely. And understand that the service industries, again, this goes back to industries, are probably going to have nicer margins. You're not paying rent. Right. That cost of rent, that nut to cover every single month doesn't go away. Right. And so you're going to have a lower margin if you've got four walls that you got to pay for. Can't help it.
Some people start out of their house.
Right. It's not my fault.
I rented an office. It wasn't an option to do that.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Well, the economics are really important too to the funding and financial companies out there that are going to provide the monies to get an individual to start a business, right? So that's one thing that I think is important for them to understand too, is banks are looking and saying, is this business profitable? Can this business be profitable? Are they registered with the SBA? That's a big one as a franchisor. I think that's an important one, especially if you're looking to go and access funds, right? And as a matter of fact, I'll just talk about this right now since we're talking about funding. Talk about the different ways that people can fund their business.
It's a million different ways to do it, right? So that's the other thing we have to talk about is what's your plan to fund it? Do you know about the 401k option that's available? A lot of people don't even know it exists. And so when you get to say you can use some of that 401k dollars, roll it into your own business, tax and penalty free. You want to buy a Mercedes? 30%.
Yeah.
Right.
They're taking that penalty. But if you want to start a business, that's an opportunity for you to do so. And then you're going to have less debt service. You don't have to do one thing. So you can say, I'm going to use some of my 401k. I'm going to go and get an SBA loan and maybe take a loan from my dad, right? There's a lot of different ways to get it done. And it truly, that's part of getting to know someone is to understand, where is your money? What does your portfolio look like? And let's make sure that you can ride this out. The only unforgivable sin in all of this is undercapitalization. You have to have enough money to ride out that first year or longer, figure it out and we'll get it done. But there's so many ways. And I think people aren't aware of that either. Sure. Like, we can figure this out, have a good credit score, be a good steward of your dollars in the first place. But there's a lot of different ways.
I think that's probably one of the first things that if they're a couple, a husband and wife, or whoever is going to look to start a business, that they should have those conversations before they even start exploring. Are we committed to going out and getting the funding we need? Are we ready to do that? Are you willing to, if it's a 2-income home, are you willing to support to make sure our personal responsibilities are covered while we build this business for a long-term benefit?
Absolutely. And that's why both people should be involved in the conversation early. It's really hard when you're talking to someone and, they're all excited and they're great and they understand it and they love it. And then they go to their wife and say, hey, we're going to roll over $100,000 out of our retirement. And she's like, nope. And she doesn't understand because she hasn't been involved in all of that learning about the brand and understanding and seeing you get excited about it to say, we're going to team this up and do this together. So that would be my one thing.
Trey's done really well with that, with Cindy, his wife. Talk about that communication in a practical way. What was that when you were looking to start this or your tax business or anything? She married an entrepreneur, right. So, and she comes. Her dad was a State Farm agent, okay. And so she comes from that background, and that was so we have not had a lot of that difficulty that I have seen other people have and go through. I mean, it is a big decision, and your spouse has to be on board. Right. Like that is not going to you got to find a way to get them on board, bring them with you to validation, whatever the discovery days and things like that. It's a little bit of a red flag, I would think, for a franchisor if the spouse is not on board. It's going to cause problems.
Well, and when they're involved in the education all the way through the process, you're not asking them for permission at the end. You're asking them for support.
Right.
Do you support me in trying to grow this business for our family? Your permission, you've given that along the way.
I think the thing I would add here is, and I love that you brought that up, Lisa. The thing I would add is, let's say that you're single, bring in somebody that knows you well. Yes. Bring in somebody that has good discernment, right? Some of us don't have good discernment. Some of us do. Bring in someone that can understand information, that knows you, and that can make a good assessment. So I love that point because we've seen many times whenever people aren't communicating well early in the process, they're building momentum, investing time on all sides, and then the spouse finally says, there's no way I could think about doing it and dealing with the stress, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and many times, as we recommend, actually, who is it that you rely on and trust when you make big decisions? Is it a family member? Is it your parent? Is it a friend? Is it a coach, mentor you've had, right? And ask them to come alongside you in this process.
Yeah, not just at the end, because they haven't learned what you've learned.
That's right.
So they might say mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good. Thanks a lot for the dinner table talk conversation that you were talking about. I think you're alluding to is everybody, whether they have a career today, both of them have careers, they have that dinner table talk. How was your day? They're supportive. You said the word supportive, right?
Absolutely.
And that's no different when you start a business. It's absolutely no different. So to have that. I'm going to make you talk about support in a way, talk about support from a franchisor. How should a candidate assess a franchise brand's support and what they have to offer for that candidate? Josh, I'll start with you.
Yeah, would love to. We're happy to go around the horn here. So let me back up a little bit because before I get into support, I want to talk about how do we think about franchisors if you're a candidate. And I want to set the stage that this is a relationship. So you're about to enter into a potential long-term relationship, right? Yep. A lot of agreements are 10 years longer than maybe the average marriage that you've seen around you, right? And you have to, in any relationship, establish, is this a trustworthy party that I'm going to hitch my wagon to, right? So is there trust? Have they been around? Are they financially stable, right? Are they someone that has a lot of good reviews from the franchisors that have been through the process and that are still working with them? That's a really big deal. You have to start there, right? And as you start to look at support, I think you have to do kind of a multi-prong prong approach, right? One, you have to understand what are the offerings. And so the franchisor should be very upfront about here's how we support you. We have franchise business coaches that meet with you twice a month. We have marketing team support for you, where they can go down the list and give you all the details. Then you have to marry that up with, once again, our franchise owner validation calls. Right. Are you seeing this support, and is it meaningful?
Right.
Just because I have somebody on the phone, a franchise business coach on the phone, doesn't necessarily mean it's meaningful, right? So if we bring those two things together, I think that's a healthy approach, or at least a way to kind of structure that concept. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I would say that, anytime somebody asks me that in a validation call, the first thing that I will say is that, understand that they're not going to do this for you.
Right.
It is up to you. They are going to give you the system, but it is your job to implement it. They're not going to come and hire your people for you. I don't know a franchise that does that. Maybe there are some, but and so you have to execute. And so, that's all part of being self-employed and being a business owner and all of that sort of thing. And so, if there are skills that you don't have, you got to go get those skills and learn from others. And so, I think number one thing as far as a franchisor is in their support is they really got to get you. They got to be good at training. I mean, that's where I think they've got to get those franchisees off, out of the chute as successfully as possible. Mm-hmm. And that training, whether it's, in classroom, hands-on training. I mean, one of the things that I've loved is doing where after you leave training, they actually have somebody will come out and spend a day, whether it's another franchisee or somebody from corporate. That really, in my opinion, that helps a lot. And so, but it's just getting them out of the gate. But it's two-tiered because once you get out of the gate, I think that something that I don't think most franchisees put enough value in is the other franchisees.
Yes.
And I mean, I personally feel that my network of other successful franchisees, that once you get out of the gate and you get going, after your first year or your second year, you build relationships with the top franchisees in the country and you help each other, that relationship is worth every dime that I pay in royalties.
Sure.
I mean, if I started this on my own, who am I going to call? My competitors?
That's right.
Hey, where are you marketing? What marketing's working for you? Nobody's going to give you that answer, right? But you've got a team of people from all over the country. I can call Miami. I can call Dallas. I can call, New York. I have people all over the country that can help me that are doing this every day and right on the ground doing what I'm doing and that can help at a much higher level. And so, there's two tiers to that. And so that, with the franchisor, you got to understand that relationship, that, they're not your employer and you're not an employee. Right. It's not that kind of relationship. They're not, you're not a customer of theirs either.
Right.
That's, people really misunderstand that relationship. They have invited you to come in as a part of a very small piece of their company so that you can both make money, right. But you've got to take what they give you and execute.
Well, and you said it earlier when you said the validate with the top. People sometimes think, well, they just want me to talk to the people that are successful and making all the money. No, I want to make sure you can relate to those guys. I want to make sure that those guys could be your best friend when the days are hard and that you can say, okay, yes, we have a similar background, we talk the same, we think the same. If you're successful in this business and we have a similar mindset, my chances are I'm going to be successful. If I cannot fathom something that you said or that you find stimulating, this isn't the one for me. I got to go find something else. And I think that that's a big thing. And people miss it in franchising, and you don't really put it in the brochures. But that hive mind, that everybody trying to come together to be successful, make money, grow businesses, that is so important that you just miss it.
I would underscore these points by saying that we see, and sometimes it's bruising to the ego, Pat, believe it or not, that every time we bring our franchise owners together, whether it be for regional meetings or our national conference once a year, the number one thing that our franchise owners walk away with from a value perspective is a conversation they've had with another franchise owner. believe it or not, it's not from something that I said from stage or one of my team. It's actually from a conversation with another franchise owner, and exactly to what Trey said.
At the pool bar.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Over a strong drink, but it's something that you can't get outside of that world too, because you're not competition by definition, right?
Right.
We're out there doing the same thing in different geographies, supporting each other. So well said.
Absolutely. Support is everything. That's what you're buying into. If you don't want that support, don't. If you want to figure out all for yourself, do not do a franchise, because that franchisor, I know, except for probably your spouse and maybe your parents, they want you to be successful more than anyone else on the planet. And so they're going to do everything they can to help you be successful.
You know, we wanted to hit 5 really good tips today. I think we hit 6.
Oh, sorry.
No, and I'm saying, because I think it's even worth what you guys are talking about, is that if you're going to go out and build a successful business, if you're going to do it on your own, you're going to hire the experts, spend the time, spend the money, figure out what works and what doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. You need support. Or you can get it from what you started off earlier, Trey, with, is you can go to a franchisor to get that support to help you get the training, but you also get the access of that network. Because how easy would it be if you started Trey's pest control business to call up your competitor and say, hey, what's working for you? What's not? What do you think they're going to say, right?
They're going to give you bad advice,
Yeah,
probably.
exactly. So,
I think you should do this.
Always spray when it's raining.
Yeah,
Always
right,
spray when
right.
it's raining.
Exactly.
well, we're about to wrap up. Anything, last things?
I've got one more, Pat. Can you pass me the cards?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I'm supposed to do this, but
Sure.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh, sure.
So
Absolutely.
I'm going to actually put you in the seat. Right? And I will tell folks, for folks who don't know this, but Pat's somebody that I would trust. If I was looking at an opportunity, Pat would be a call that I've made. He's talked to thousands of candidates. He does a great job of sorting out whether this is a fit or not. So, Pat, I don't know if you probably don't have this question, so I'm making it up on the spot.
That's right.
Pat, what would you want to tell a candidate about how to assess a franchisor and an opportunity? What are the highlights that you would want to transmit to them?
That it's a process, not an event. When you start to investigate, understand you're about to embark on a very exciting time, but also a very nerve-wracking time, and expect that the emotions can come into this process. Now, one thing that I would encourage an aspiring entrepreneur to do is to say, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why are we going through this process of maybe investing some of our money out of a retirement or signing on a loan to go and build? Because you've heard the old adage, when you know your why, you can endure anyhow, right? No, take some time. Understand the reason of what you're wanting to do. And that was one of the points, today, was really understanding, is business ownership right for you? This is not a shameless plug, but that was the purpose of this. My goal truly in franchising is to help more people gain clarity on whether or not business ownership is right for them. Because I really believe a lot of people don't, because they can't tie it all together and get clarity on that. If they literally go through the webinar that we did, or the readiness series, and take that time to figure that out, I truly believe we're going to not only help them achieve their personal financial goals, whether it's with a Neighborly brand or something else, but also to help build this industry that we have of small business ownership. I am a proponent of what we have in small business. I love it. I think it's an amazing industry. It can provide you all those beautiful benefits and everything. But honestly, I really think that people really love to do something for themselves. They wanted to be that owner.
It's
right?
freedom. It's absolutely. That's why do you love it? It's freedom. You get to make your choices now. No one else. You're not calling another adult asking for time off. I can't imagine. And I'm also a serial entrepreneur, so I haven't worked for another person in a really long time, but I can't imagine that happening. And so I think that's just it, though. It's not for everybody. Not everybody can handle making those decisions and all those spinning plates.
That's right.
But if you want it, it's a great life.
It is, sure. So find that. Number one.
I'm glad we got you,
it's
because
good.
that
No,
was
thank
perfect.
you.
Good job.
Thank you. And then the others are that it rolls into is, all right, business ownership is right for me. Now, how do we go out and find the right opportunity? Right?
Call me.
That's it. Do you work with a professional coach, and consultant like Lisa? Or are you going to go and find it on your own? I think that's the other thing that we've got to Want to hand me my cards?
And Pat,
because I had
I'd
written
like to
down
add
the other-
on something there. And Lisa's probably not what you're going to find in every coach, right? Franchise coach. But one of the things that I've even heard her talk about is the importance of being able to meet candidates where they are, because there aren't any two candidates,
That's
right?
so
And
true.
part of her job, and I think what she probably does really, really well, is sorting out who is this person, what are their real needs, and how do I get them to something that's going to be a good fit for them, right?
Yep.
It's not about her just getting them to a brand. It's really understanding that unique individual person, and that's critical to the process.
And helping people understand their selves. Some people just don't know that yet, right? They think, yes, business ownership is for me, and then when they start hearing all the different things that go into it, sometimes we'll determine together, this is not the right time in your life to do this. You need to wait a little while. Maybe it's save some more money. Maybe it's get some more experience, read some books, whatever that is. Franchisors, like you said, they're not going to do it for them. They're going to give them all of the tools, but you have to be coachable.
Yeah.
And if you're pushing back on taking advice, franchising is not for you.
And I will share with you the strongest franchisors. I've been blessed to work for somebody that I feel is amazing in our space. Neighborly truly takes the time to do a lot of, when we work with candidates through the process, are they a good fit for us?
Right.
Because the majority, over 80%, was it they just said and shared at the IFA that of franchisors have less than 100 locations. And of those, 75% of them have less than 25. So if you think about it, to have an established brands out there that are out there, it's not as common as you would think, right? Because you see the big iconic ones, like you said, Pizza Hut or the McDonald's of the world, right? You do. So you've got to make sure you are aligning with somebody that is going to get you what you're paying for, right? Because really, you're either going to pay for it by going out and doing your own, right? Was one of the points. Are you going to do it alone, or are you going to align with a franchisor? You're going to pay for it either way. From my wife's and I, after doing this for a while and many, many franchises and multi-unit, multi-concept, we personally believe, it's our belief, that from the economies of scale standpoint, it's much better for us to go through franchising. Because is my wife brilliant? Yeah. Could she go out and figure it out? But how much time would it take?
How much time and how much money? It will cost you, I hand over heart believe this, it will cost you twice as much to figure this out on your own.
I believe it.
And a lot of that money is going to be in mistakes. No one likes spending money on mistakes.
That's right. So is business ownership right for you is one of the key takeaways. The second was, do you go alone or do you align with a franchise? I think that's an important one. Decide how you're going to investigate this. Are you going to be a lone ranger? Or are you going to work with a professional coach like Lisa or someone like her? And then the other one is, I think we started early on, was start with the end game in mind. That really kind of came out. Maybe it's sexy, maybe it's not, but is it going to achieve your goals, right? Mm-hmm. Make sure you match your goals with the end in mind. And then the last one, I think, is, Josh, you hit it perfectly. This is a relationship. Mm-hmm. It can be a 10-year relationship that you want to make sure that they have the same values and culture and, fit for you.
That's right.
So, well, this has really been an enlightening discussion. Thank you all so much for joining us today and sharing your insights and tips for evaluating franchise opportunities to give some actionable advice to those considering the rewarding path of franchise ownership. And thank you all for tuning in today. This has really been great information. And hopefully, for those who are watching, you got some really great insights and tips on the best ways to move forward in your journey towards business ownership and considering if the path is right for you. When it comes to franchising, we know that there are many opportunities out there to consider. We hope you can see the kinds of thought leaders and resources you have access to when you work with Neighborly. When the time comes and you're ready to explore franchise business ownership, the possibility of Neighborly or any one of our 19 North American brands, you can visit our website at franchise.neighborly.com for more information. Or you can reach out directly to us. We're always willing to help guide you on the journey to get you in touch with one of our experienced franchise developers. We've also provided a QR code that you can see on the screen now. This will take you directly to the Neighborly franchising site that I just mentioned. Before you go, there are a few other reminders I have for you. A replay of this webinar will be available on our website. so you can rewatch as many times as you'd like. We also will provide you the replay link via email for you to review or share with someone else. Be sure to check our email information and to register for our next webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us today.